This is John Sadak, TV voice of the Cincinnati Reds, and you're up for Late Night Reds Talk.
What is going on, everybody? It is Monday night, and you know what that means. Another fantastic episode of Late Night Reds Talk Live. Late Night Reds Talk Live is part of the Believe Podcast Network and Bet Online. We're back and better than ever with a new web interface for the rest of the NBA season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BLEAV50, to receive your bonus. Basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fast and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And when over-unders for baseball come out, you can use BetOnline for that too. I am Tim Daniel, excited to be back after last week having to do my college basketball biz, but here with my crew, as always, my good friend, our producer, the man who puts it all together, Mr. Nick Kirby.
What is going on, fellas? Happy Monday.
That's man. Excited to be here. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty nice. Just hung out with the fam. How about you?
Yeah, man, same. And then also joining us, we got former big leaguer here in the building with us. Excited to see his face again. You guys got your Christmas lights up in your office. Mine's just in my house, so I'm behind you guys. But my good friend, hopefully yours as well, Carlos Guevara. How are you, man?
What's up, boys? I'm doing well.
Good. Excited to be back. I missed you guys last week. You guys did a great job with Clay and Bryce, so really enjoyed listening to the show. But man, since I've been gone, I've had to catch up on so much baseball stuff, and obviously the stove has been as hot gets, so we're going to get to that through the episode. But let's kind of go ahead and get started with that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the big action that's going on, and I think the biggest one so far are the teams that the Reds were worried about competing against for Nick Castellanos have went and got guys that they've signed a big contracts. You see here put together Starling Marte, who played half a season last year for the Oakland A's, just signed a 4-year, $78 million deal to be in Queens playing for the Mets. And thankfully, Aviso Garcia is now leaving the Central Division and will be signed a 4-year, $53 million deal to play with the Miami Marlins. First, I want to say, I'm very happy the Marlins signed a big contract for a guy. I know the chances that he probably finishes that contract there are very slim to none, but we know how the Marlins like to do these things in years past. But, really what the biggest thing I want to kind of talk about there is kind of just the whole thing now. Obviously, the thing that kind of jumps to this, Carlos, you've been on Twitter, you've talked about this quite a bit, is how does this affect Nick Castellanos? Because it kind of seemed like for a bit there, the way things were going, these two teams and maybe the Phillies were the teams that were really kind of the Reds were competing against for them. And I guess there's rumors going around right now that Dave Dombrowski has reached out to Scott Boras about Nick Castellanos. So it seems like there's been some teams that have been making that action for him. But I feel like that market, with how close we are to potential, 2-3 days away, this market might mean that we are this situation is getting a lot better for Nick Castellanos to come back to the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You can kind of look at it both ways, I guess. With those two signing, I feel just kind of eliminates some teams from being in that contention for him. Like the Marlins were looking for a big right-handed bat and they got one. I mean, I don't know if that means they're going to stop looking, but I kind of like the odds now. I think the Reds are going to go after Nick Castellanos, not Kirby. But I mean, I don't know. You never know. You never know who's out there. There's always a mystery team, somebody willing to either overpay or just something along that line. I just hope that the Reds are sitting back amongst all these signings that are going on the last 48 hours, and they've got something up their sleeves for us later.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Reds are more in on Castellanos than I think a lot of people would think. I think it's more likely that the Reds are going to wait and see kind of how this new CBA shakes out. We'll get into it later. We'll talk about potential for expanded playoffs. I think that would be a big determining factor in what the Reds decide to do. The one report today was that Castellanos is looking for a 7 to 8 year deal, which that is a little interesting. Not just because you're looking for a 7 to 8 year deal doesn't mean you're going to get a 7 to 8 year deal. I don't know about the Reds going that far, with a free agent.
Sure.
That would be kind of a little farther than I would want them to go. But yeah, I think the Reds are definitely in play here.
I do too. I'm also with you on that, because I've talked to some people when I've been out and about, and they know I do this, and they're like, well, if you're Nick Krall, wouldn't you give him a blank check? And I was like, no, I wouldn't. That's not to say I don't want him back. It's not to say I don't love him. I think he'd be a great fit for the team still. But if you hand him a blank check and after the season he just had, what he's going to feel like he deserves, who his agent is, that could be bad. That could be really bad for the Reds for the future.
Yeah, again, we don't know what other teams are offering Castellanos. So that's
right.
The biggest piece to this puzzle that we don't know. That deal for Avisail Garcia, only 4 years, 53 million. I think it's about 13 and a half or 14 and a half AAV, average annual value. That's a really attractive deal.
It is.
And, that's where it gets interesting. It just, again, I don't know what the offers are for Castellanos right now. I am very interested. I hope the Reds make an aggressive move at him, but I hope he's not their only option. I hope that they are, I hope they're viewing him as a free agent and they're viewing who would be the best fit overall for the team for the next several years.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought process earlier whenever I text y'all to see who was left out there on the right-handed outfield market, just because, it's a lot of guys are coming off the board and it's getting a little worrisome to where maybe our chips are all in on what happens if he signs somewhere else. Then what? By then probably should the Clint Frazier's and the McCutcheons, all those guys are going to be signed up by then, I feel, and I just hope they don't get themselves too deep in the hole in this Castellanos deal.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting time with free agency because you're seeing teams like the Texas Rangers being super ultra aggressive before we get to this potential lockout. But you're seeing the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Red Sox sitting on their hands. Teams that are trying to.
The Cardinal.
Yeah, the Cardinals did sign Matz, but it's not like they went out and made a massive deal or anything. The Cubs haven't done anything. The Brewers, they've only lost players. So it's interesting. I think the Reds are, and I know no one wants to hear it, but I think they're in kind of a wait and see with how the new CBA will come out. I think that's going to determine a lot of the direction. That and as we've talked about before, what are your potential returns for your big three pitchers? If someone's going to give you a haul that's going to, you know, help you for years and years to come, I think they're going to look at that. And I think kind of when all that settles, that's when they're going to kind of determine which direction they're going in. I don't think it's this, we have no clue, we're clueless. I think there's just so many things that have to be answered before they can really set a definite direction.
Yeah, I agree, man. I definitely think that that's very valid. I just think the biggest part about it is, you know, Nick, actually saw you were talking about this on Twitter the other day, and I think you made a really good point as far as one of the things you kind of saw to the Reds' advantage was, and I made fun of this literally a couple weeks ago on this show, was how much the Reds are attached to fan favorites and how they hold on to them for too long, and how that could really actually be beneficial in the sake of wanting to bring Nick Castellanos back, knowing that it could be an uproar of this fan base if they see him sign somewhere else. And the year he just had, I mean, he was on a billboard out on the side of the stadium. You know, I don't have anything to see. Like, my best guess would be he was probably one of the top 2 selling jerseys for the Reds this year with Jonathan India. I don't have that in front of me to prove that's the case. I'm guessing, but maybe Votto still. But yeah, I think that this is going to be kind of a thing where I'm with you. I want them to be aggressive. I don't want that to be their only option. I do see Carlos's point of being worried about, like, well, you know, if they're waiting for Castellanos and they can't go get, you know, someone else who can help them, that's going to be worrisome. I will say this about the fan base. I love you guys. I appreciate all the passion. So please don't hate me when I say this. You're freaking out too soon. I understand you're seeing everyone else doing what they're doing. And you're like, but these memes about like sitting on your hands and all this bullshit, like, guys, we are 2 days in the hot stove. A little more.
Can we chill a little bit on the Texas Rangers? The Reds' payroll last year was higher than their payroll is right now. Like, they had no one on their books. They did a lot of great things. Yeah. And I would be super pumped if I'm a Rangers fan.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's not act like they just added all these guys onto an already exorbitant payroll. They had nothing. Their payroll was empty 3 days ago. So
plus, like, yeah, like those 2 that they signed, which are great players. It's awesome. Who else hits around them in that lineup at this point? Like
Garcia. That's it, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, like, I mean, they don't have a Jonathan India. They don't have a Tyler Stevenson. They don't have a Jesse Winker. Like, the Reds already have those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll kind of move real quick into the next topic as we're going to go through those. And this is going to be about Wander Franco, who honestly I might think is my favorite baseball player that's not on a Red right now, to be totally transparent. We've talked a lot on the show. We've had a lot of fan interaction, a lot of questions about, you know, are the Rays good for baseball? Are they bad for baseball? Carlos has been someone who I really appreciated your insight on, because you talked a lot about, like, well, if you're a fan, you can't really get attached to guys because it's like, you know, they could lose these guys. I mean, they literally just had a guy that pitched in the 2020 World Series and they took him out of game too early and they traded him to San Diego. So now we're kind of seeing a situation where Wander Franco signs a 12-year extension worth about maximum of $223 million. I love the idea of just like getting rid of arbitration and just not having that worry. And I don't necessarily think he's going to play all 12 years on that contract in Tampa by any means.
No shot.
But I do like that they went ahead and took care of it so they don't have to go through those hearings for about 6 years. If you're going to do it with anyone in that organization, this is the guy to do it with.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think Franco's on a lot different level than as much as it pains me to say, like an India or a Stevenson.
Same, yeah.
The thing I think we have to remember is we got a kind of a question from Cooper Willard on YouTube a couple days ago. What's the Wander Franco deal mean for Jose Barrero? And I think you could also probably switch Barrero out for India or Stevenson. Mm-hmm. What I would kind of say to that would be, you know, number one, Franco's on a little bit different of a level. So this is a move that the Rays think they can potentially, you know, trade and get value from as well. The thing with Stevenson and India, sure, it'd be great to extend them now. But if you're extending them now, you are going to be hurting the team a little bit the next couple years, because the next couple years they're going to be on league minimum deals. So if you're signing them to a contract extension, they're probably going to be getting at least $10 million next year and the year after. So that's pretty much going to be $10 million less that the Reds would have to spend on other areas. So it's one of those things where sure, yeah, it would help, potentially the Reds could maybe get a steal later on, but you're also going to be hurting the team in the short term based on, the budget. Sure, the Reds could just spend more, but again, the budget runs out at some point for
Right.
every team. So that's just going to be 10 million, 15 million less right now that you have. So you have to kind of weigh that when you're doing options. The best time to extend someone is when you're rebuilding, when you can, you're not worried about signing guys, that money can just kind of be whatever, because you don't have to trying to fill out your whole roster. So now I know the Rays aren't rebuilding, but it would make more sense, for the Reds if they were like in a full rebuild, which I don't think they are anytime soon, to be looking to extend guys, as opposed to when, they're in a competitive window or close to being in a competitive window.
Yeah. I don't think that Franco deal has, any comparison to any of the guys that are on the Reds roster. I mean,
Right.
maybe if India or Stevenson, or heck, even Barrero next year, ends up in MVP talks, it's probably the only way that we'll start comparing the two, because that's what Wander Franco is going to be on at the beginning of next year. He's going to be in MVP talks, so it's a totally different animal. I don't like the deal as a player, but it's hard. It's really hard to fault a guy who is going to get guaranteed money, who's coming from nothing, who's played less than 100 games. It's really hard to do that, but at the same time, man, I want to see somebody sign a $500 million deal.
Yeah, if I won the $200 million lottery and someone tells me, well, you can either take the $200 million or you can gamble it for $400 million, I'm going to be like, no, think of the $200 million. Like, I'm not even going to think about it, So, I mean, the Rays are taking some risk. I mean, he has only played 2 months.
100
Yeah,
I mean,
they're taking some risk in, production. Probably not a lot of, he feels like a sure thing, but there's been a lot of players that have felt like a sure thing that didn't pan out. And then they're also, just taking 12 years, God forbid, players do have career-ending injuries. So, they are taking on some risk in that, for a guy that they don't have to.
They got insurance on that, baby. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah. Could Franco could take out insurance on himself, right?
Yeah. That's what a lot of NFL prospects do, is like when their last couple of weeks of college, like in their last couple of years of college football, and they know they're getting ready to go to the draft, they'll take it on their insurance claim in case they have a serious injury. So like Jalen Smith that played for the Cowboys, he had a really bad injury at Notre Dame, but since he had an insurance claim from that injury, he wasn't worried about his rookie contract. It was pretty fascinating, actually, when I read into it.
I think I remember that with Andrew Luck. I think he had like $1 million contract, insurance policy for his last year. So
yeah, that came in handy apparently because he retired early. So yeah, I don't necessarily mind it. So Carlos, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned you didn't necessarily like the contract as a player. Is that coming from just because of who the franchise is? Is that coming from just like from being around the league and like being around major leaguers in your time? Or just like for example, obviously I know you're obviously, we're not, we've talked about it. You're close with Joey. Joey signed that big contract. Is it something where like, and I'm not judging you when I ask this question by any means. I'm asking, is this something where it's like, you just don't like it because it's Tampa and how they treat their players and how they move guys around so much? Or is it just, you don't like the risk of what could happen with the injuries?
I don't like, because it seems like that's just somebody who's not betting on themselves.
Okay.
Like accepting, okay, well, maybe I'm not gonna be as good, or what if I don't, pan out? So here's this money. But because a lot of people are gonna use his salary, arbitrators are gonna use his salary against future players.
That's a good point.
This guy just won back-to-back MVPs and he's only making what is it going to be, like $20 million a year? Like, okay, you are not in the top 25, so here's your $8 million and move on. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and the players of the past put in a lot of work for these annual salaries to be this high, and for it to be brought back down like this that quick. It's not, I'm making it sound like it's a much worse thing than it actually is. I'm sorry for that, but I'm just trying to get to where I can express what I'm trying to say, and that man, it sucks that he's not betting on himself and waiting to, wait a couple of more years, really do something, and then see if they extend something,
Yeah, and I get that. I certainly
Like, because I
do.
think if he would have waited the same amount of years that Tatis did and started hitting like he's gonna hit, the Rays, there's no way the Rays could have afforded him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because he would
Like
have
I
been
said, I was
close
just
to
kind of picking your
500.
brain.
Because Tatis signed for what, 350 something, somewhere
Yeah.
around there, and he's going to be a way better hitter than him. Maybe not way better, but he's projected to be better.
I think Wander's going to be incredible. I
Yeah.
honestly think he's going to be the real deal. I really like him a lot. And I made a lot of money on his rookie cards this year, so that definitely helps. Let's talk real quick about Byron Buxton too. So this was the one that was kind of the most fascinating to me, honestly. For a guy who signs a 7-year deal, it's $100 million, so it's not a very expensive contract as far as AAV. He's got bonuses for MVPs, in different situations. And look, the talent is there. His guy is phenomenal. We've seen when he's on the field, he can do some amazing things, but the issue is not being able to consistently see him on the field. So I was definitely a little taken back by the fact he signed that they agreed to this contract that Minnesota offered it. Not necessarily because he's not a good enough player by any means, because he is tremendous. Just that, like he's had a lot of injuries, very similar to Jesse Winker. So what were you guys kind of thinking when you saw this? Was it a shock? Was it something where you kind of thought about, like, is this something that could affect our guys? We just talked about how Wander Franco could affect Jonathan India. Could Byron Buxton affect Jesse Winker at all, do you think?
I love the structure of the deal personally. Buxton is an elite player when he is on the field. Like,
right.
I mean, I'm talking like maybe one of like the top 5 position players in the game, but he's got 271, 235, and 90 at bats the last 3 full seasons. So he's still got $100 million from the Twins and guaranteed money. So I'm certainly not going to feel sorry for a guy that got that much money that hasn't been able to stay on the field. And then I love that he still gets these incentives. I mean, he can make up to, I think, $10.5 million additional on top of his, already $15 million per year. So I mean, this can actually turn out to be over a $25 million deal for a particular year if he wins the MVP. And I mean, even if he finishes in the top 4, that's still like $7.5 million, because he's going to get a full season of plate appearances to match that. So I don't know. I love this structure. I would love more structures where you get kind of half of it guaranteed, and then the other half is performance based. I think that it could potentially help teams like the Reds maybe be able to sign more guys, and then if they all click, then hey, the Reds are stuck with the bill. Hey, now you have to pay it. I don't know. I love this deal. I see why players wouldn't. But I think especially for Buxton, I think this was a very, very fair deal just because of how little he's been able to play.
It reminds me a lot of the Bengals Andy Dalton contract when he signed his extension. It was like very little's guaranteed, but if you do this, and this, we'll give you extra money. And yeah, I'm with you. I do think the idea of it makes a lot of sense. I just do, like I said, I worry about, is he going to ever hit 400 plate appearances in a year again? We don't know. So.
Nick, you work for the owners or what? When do you start working for them?
I mean, the guy's making $100 million guaranteed, and he hasn't played.
Hey, I understand that, and this deal, I'm like on the 50-50, like just because he hasn't, and he probably knows his body better than we do. So I'm not criticizing that at all. But the fact that you say that you like to see these deals like moving forward, get out of here with that shit. Hell no. Are you kidding me?
I feel like it's a way for someone like Jesse Winker to potentially earn more money on the open market.
No. All that's going to do is make salaries go down. That's all that would do.
What do you think Jesse Winker would get if he was a free agent right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible with contracts and money like that. You have to give me a comparable player.
I would think as far as like left-handed hitting outfielders, who would his market be against? Like Schwarber?
Yeah, I mean, and just with his, Winker hasn't been able to play a full season. So, I mean, I think that Winker could earn more money with an incentivized contract. I think he's going to cap at, I don't know, maybe 60 million over 4 years, something like that, maybe 460. I don't know. That's just a wild number I'm throwing out there. But I think that's probably where he caps. Well, Winker might be able to sign for 4 years, 50 with $30 million of, incentives. So it actually could, I don't know, would you rather have 450 or 460? But the 450 you could turn into 480 if you are able to play a full season. I don't know. I like the incentivized deals. I get why you and, a lot of other players wouldn't, but I don't know. I kind of like
all
the
other players.
Except for Byron Buxton.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would have to be, a player like him. Like, it'd have to be to like a Nick Senzel or, I mean, Winker. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not talking like a Castellanos who's never had any injury concerns except for when Adrian Hauser's an idiot and throws at his hand.
Thanks.
I'm talking more the Jesse Winkers. The Nick Senzel would be a great one. I mean, Nick Senzel would be a great guy if he hit the open market, to have an incentivized deal where he could, instead of just signing one of these, tiny little deals, he could make a lot of money if he's able to, stay on the field and produce.
Yeah. As a player, it's probably like the last news that you want to get. Hey, I've got some deals for you, but they're incentive type deals. Fuck.
All right, I get that. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally understand where you're coming from there. So I can see both sides of it. I guess if I had to pick one, I'd be down the middle. So maybe that's not the sexiest. Yes, I know.
Pick a side.
Pick one of us, Tim.
Luis Castillo contract conversations have been popping up, folks. And so now we're kind of checking this out where it's been reported that he's been unlikely to be moved. It's been reported that the Angels and the Reds have had talks. It's also been reported now that Tyler Mahle has been open, but they're unlikely. So this is kind of getting wild here. We kind of suspected this would always be the Luis Castillo market, right? Like we heard these conversations last year. It was a couple weeks ago. We discussed the idea of Joe Adell coming to Cincinnati for Luis Castillo. We've discussed multiple times that, I think Nick and I might be in agreement that we feel like Sonny Gray's probably pitched his last game for the Reds. So this is all kind of popping up. And then you look at teams today like the Dodgers, obviously losing Max Scherzer. I know one guy in this group chat is very excited about the things that have happened to the Dodgers today. His name's Carlos Guevara, and losing Max Scherzer and Corey Seager, and probably more the way things are sounding. So
the poor Dodgers, I feel so sorry for them.
Yeah, you just hate to see it, right?
Oh my gosh, how are they going to recover?
Yeah, I know. If Clayton Kershaw leaves, I'm going to be so fired up
until they get the entire Reds rotation.
Yeah, right.
Just trade for all three of them.
Yeah, that probably would happen. You're right. So the whole thing right now with, Luis Castillo, I think we've discussed this a lot. And we kind of knew this would be a theme at the end of the year that we'd be talking about quite a bit. I still kind of have this feeling that come March 31st, 2022, he'll be a Red. I would have probably said 95%, but I'm probably now more like at 83%, if that's fair. So kind of curious your guys' thoughts on these kind of reports. I think it's always good to listen, but I also suspect that this is a guy who had a really, really good second half to his year. That's a guy, you want to make sure you get something good back for him.
I don't think any of them get traded. That's my gut. I mean, I think it's possible. I think they absolutely should be listening to every single one of these guys, seeing what the market's like. Maybe a team like the Dodgers gets a little more desperate and wants to overpay. A potential deal that I said before that made a lot of sense was maybe something like Dustin May and Gavin Lux for Castillo. Dodgers are willing to pony up for that. I mean, that's not a deal that makes you terrible in 2022. It definitely makes you better in 2024 because you don't even have Luis Castillo right now in 2024 and beyond. So I don't know. I said before the offseason, I thought one of Gray or Miley would for sure be gone. Or sorry, one of Gray or one of Gray or Miley, but Miley's already gone. So I think they'll all be back. I don't think anyone's going to give up enough. And I think the Reds are going to hold really, really firm to a high asking price.
Yeah, as they should.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I thought anybody was going to go, it's still going to be Gray for me. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it's going to play out. Maybe they let Castellanos walk, sign a couple of cheaper guys, extend Luis Castillo, maybe. That'd be kind of some good news.
I'm all on the extend Malley train. I think that his value for what you could potentially get for him on an extension right now is better than Castillo. You know, that'd be the guy I would look for. And those are the guys for the Reds right now to be looking at extending, because they're already making about $7 million projected for 2022. So if you're extending them and you're, paying them 10 or 12, you're not really, burning the budget up too much on them, because you already are going to be paying them.
Yeah. Max asked on the chat about the Dodgers losing a lot today. Think if they maybe pivot to Castillo to help fill that void. I mean, sure. I don't know what they have prospect wise to give back. So
they have everyone.
Yeah.
So
they have a lot of options, and they have a lot of young controllable players too that aren't maybe necessarily prospects, like your Gavin Luxes of the world. I mean, they have a lot of players like that. So
Chris Taylor. No, Chris Taylor's a free agent, isn't he?
Yeah, Chris Taylor's a free agent. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Dodgers are more viable than they were yesterday. But again, I don't know if a team's going to give up enough to really, warrant you trading him at this point. Because I mean, again, at this point, we know, you get a qualifying, you can qualify and offer these guys if they get to free agency. So it's got to be a significantly better price than that, because you're giving up them pitching for you too for the next 2 years, right? So it has to really, really be good. And Max, this is just get out of here with this one. Come on.
Nick and I are both very
Bellinger have left.
Too many.
And Bellinger's making like $16 million
to hit.
Like Bellinger may be like almost a wash, or doesn't have a lot of value. I mean, he's about probably worth what he's making based on his recent track record, and
what
the risk.
How many years does he have left on his deal?
I'm pretty sure he's out of arbitration. I think they signed him to a contract extension to avoid his arbitration, if I remember.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I'll tell you here in a second.
I'll tell you, I had him in my Dynasty Baseball League. We started our new league this year, and I took him in the second round, and that was terrible. That didn't work out.
Hey, if it's one more year than Castillo has, give me Bellinger.
He earns $16 million in 2019. So I mean, you're trading Luis Castillo at about $8 million for Cody Bellinger earning 16.5. No, so Bellinger is actually in arbitration.
Is it his first year in arbitration?
No, he'll be arbitration 3, but his arbitration last year was 16.5. And remember, you can't go down. Once you're there, you can't go down. You have to, so he's going to earn, I would assume, 16.5 again. He's certainly not going to get a raise after the year he just had, right? So, I mean,
I hope not.
If there's anyone locked into an arbitration number, it's him. It's going to be 16.5. So, yeah. I mean, that would, yeah. I mean, he would maybe be a throw-in for, a great package.
Yeah. But Max here said he believes he could be non-tendered. So,
I think Max was joking. I think Max was joking. I hope Max was joking.
Yeah. Well, I know we got another LA team to talk about here in a little bit with the Michael Lorenzen news. But before we get to that, guys, we got to talk about Lightbox. Say goodbye to dull gifts. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds are the brightest gift of the year. Use cutting-edge technology and innovative techniques. They've cracked the science of sparkle, creating the highest quality lab-grown diamonds you can find. A light price of $800 per carat. Oh, shit, $800. They have the same makeup of natural diamonds, but are just grown in a lab. Because of the process, they can create stones in blush pink and beautiful blue as well, a classic white. We're all married men, so we know all about this. Lightbox tab-grown diamonds are the gift they'll never want to take off. impressed they won't have to. They really do make an outfit sparkle. Visit lightboxjewelry.com and add sparkle to your holiday shopping. That's lightboxjewelry.com. Lightbox Diamonds. Never a dull moment. And you want to talk about never a dull moment, folks? You like that segue? That was pretty good, right? Not bad. Get better at this. B+. B+, please.
Tough judge.
Tough judge. You are, man. You're like the Simon Cowell of ad reads. Do people still make that reference? I don't know. Anyway.
Just you.
Okay, just me. Michael Lorenzen. My horrible prediction that Michael Lorenzen would be the guy that would stay on Cincinnati happened as Michael Lorenzen signs a 1-year, $7 million contract with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So we'd see now that Michael Lorenzen, who is going to be the National League Shohei Ohtani, is now the American League B- Shohei Ohtani for bringing out alphabet grades. But I do have to say, I'm sad to see him go. I really enjoyed him here. I do think this is a cool fit for him as a starting pitcher, obviously being an AL guy. And I got to bring up it's got to be brought up. And it has been a few times on Twitter when people are talking about, well, he can go there and he can DH and he can hit. It's like, I think he's had like a run of like 70 good at bats. Other than that, he's kind of been a below average major league hitter, but having, the expense to do so is great. This team also brought in Noah Syndergaard. So, the Angels are making moves. But when the time comes that Shohei Ohtani's contract comes up, like, is their team their payroll just going to be Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani?
Possible.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I think they're like the Pujols dead money is almost up here in a couple of years, if I remember correctly. I don't think they stretched it. So yeah, I mean, obviously Lorenzen had a really fun career here, had some awesome moments. That picture you have there, with where he hit the home run against the Dodgers, his first game after his dad passed, that was at that game. And man, that was like one of the coolest moments to be in the stadium. I was, so he was definitely one of my favorite players to see over time. I appreciated that they had all these different options with them. So it does stink that he's moving on. But $7 million for a guy who's kind of a tweener starter or reliever seems like a little much to me. So I don't necessarily blame the Reds for not matching this by any means.
Yeah, I mean, he makes a lot more sense for the Angels than a team like the Reds. The Angels are just so desperate for pitching, and Lorenzen is an innings eater. He is a guy that you can have as a reliever. You can, have big starts. That's the kind of guy that the Angels need. So it makes a lot of sense for him. I don't really think the offense is really a big part of it. I think it's more probably that it's in California, in LA where he's from. But Lorenzen's interesting. I feel like Lorenzen's one of those guys that is so overrated by a portion of the Reds fan base, and it is underrated by another portion of the Reds fan base. I think there's some Reds fans that think he was like this elite reliever, which he wasn't. But then there's others that think he had like no value. Lorenzen had a lot of value to the Reds. It wasn't as this, like lockdown reliever. He was a bulk reliever, bulk innings, and 11th most in Reds history in inning pitched. 14th and wins above replacement as a reliever. No, he had a fine career, and I posted a video earlier today. I know no one wants to ever like give the Reds any credit for 2020 and like wants to make it like that never happened. I don't know. I thought the end of 2020 was a really fun end of the year. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. Lorenzen was a big part of that. The Reds looked like they were toast. Sonny Gray went down, they were toast, and Lorenzen hadn't started in a couple of years. Came in and made 2 solid starts, and then pitched 3 innings of relief in the clincher, and was a big part of that great run. The only really good Reds run of the last 8 years. So, just kind of interesting. He's kind of one of those guys that, I definitely, like you said, I really enjoyed Lorenzen. He was whatever, all the cliches about great representative of your, team and city and all that. But sad to see him go, but I also don't think the Reds should have paid him $7 million either.
Yeah, I think it was an easy choice just to go ahead and let him walk because his heart's obviously not in relieving, and it's a total, 2 totally different things to get ready for a season for, whether you're starting and worrying about your 4th and 5th pitches or however many you're going to have. as to your dominant 2+1. It's a big difference. $7 million is a lot for him, especially someone who can't stay as healthy over the last couple of years. I don't think he's going to do much hitting wise over there. I'm sure they'll give him a crack at it early, but I don't think it's going to be much of an option for him. It's going to be funny seeing him and Noah Syndergaard with their cut off sleeves every day.
Yeah, they're already tweeting together.
And
I
the
saw
gun
they're
shows
started
going
putting
on
a
over there.
bromance. Yeah,
this guy's biceps are huge. But
yeah,
he had a good career. That was pretty rough on him, but I don't know. Not gonna hurt my feelings.
probably one of the most insane athletes I've ever seen play for the Reds. I mean, like some of the stuff he could do, like that you'd see like in his Instagram videos and stuff, are pretty wild.
I didn't see any of those.
He like balanced like a jug, like a gallon, like a glass of water on his forehead, and like bent down like with his back and like kept it balanced the whole time. Like crazy shit, man. Houdini stuff.
Carlos, you didn't lay in bed at night watching Michael Lorenzen Instagram videos
Yeah,
like
Who
Tim?
are you? I wouldn't say I was in bed. First off, don't get twisted. Curb. All right.
Recliner.
Massage chair at the gym, but
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Good luck, Michael.
Yeah, hope the best for you. Also, looks like another more Reds news as CNL Perez was claimed off of the waiver wire by the Reds and going to Baltimore. So I don't really have much on this. I know there's people out there that are much higher on him than me. I hope he ends up being a pretty good major league pitcher, but I didn't see any reason to believe he would be. He's got some arm talent, but I feel like every time he came to a game, people were ducking in the outfield for balls that were heading that way. So I think his all-time Reds moment will be that time he was in the bullpen in Pittsburgh and he was waving his arm for Suarez to go home and score.
Yeah, Perez has a lot of talent. He had a lot better success in the minors last year. He could strike a lot of guys out, but can't throw strikes. It's hard to be too upset about, the guy not having a roster spot. So I wish he would have had an option, because if he had an option, I think the Reds definitely would have kept him. But without being, optionable, and you have to keep him on the major league roster, I just don't think he's worth the risk, or, worth the risk of, not being able to pick up other guys to hold a spot for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole much on CNO. He had good stuff. I remember watching in spring and reaching out to Joey, and he was, I said, man, this guy's probably got the best stuff as a left-hander. And he said, yeah, I agree, but he's like, he can't. He's got to control it. He's got to spend some time in the minors, and he ended up making the team. But yeah, maybe he'll figure it out. We'll see.
Yeah. I'll bring this up real quick, and it's just a solid. And we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. This is from Nathan Price. Yes, how concerned are you that Bob demands the Reds lose value on Sonny Gray by packaging Sogo to dump payroll? I'm not at all, truthfully. I do think they'll try to find a way to get off the Sogo contract. I don't necessarily think they will, but this isn't something that I'm like losing sleep over with them by any means.
Yeah, I don't. I think the Reds still have about $15 million to spend. I think they did their dumping. I think that trading Castillo, Gray, or Malley is about the future, not about saving money.
I agree.
And I know that's the easy narrative right now, but those guys aren't making, big bucks in terms of baseball. Like 10 million for Sonny Gray, that's not a lot of money. So I don't know. I think they've done what they needed to do to get their payroll to where they want to have a little bit of flexibility, but I don't see them dumping any other salary at this point.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's kind of go to this news coming out about Aristides Aquino. Apparently, the Reds are planning to send a hitting coach to the Dominican Republic to work with him this offseason. I kind of suspected that he would play winter ball. And that was, maybe that's something the Reds told him not to do. I don't really know how that works. But I think we've kind of all talked about this. We know the power's there. We just like to see him consistently hit it. He's your typical. I mean, I wouldn't say typical, but what was this? Pedro Serrano from Major League. Fastball he can hit hard, curveball he can't hit for shit, kind of thing. So, yeah, I hopefully I still have hope for Aquino. I don't know if he's gonna end up being a major league star by any means, but that month that we're always gonna remember in 2019, man, that was a blast, and I don't know if we'll ever recreate it again, but if he's in even half of that, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that the Reds are sending a coach to the DR to work with them. I mean, I think that kind of puts away the narrative that the Reds are gonna, not bring him back next year. I mean, I definitely think you would. I don't think you send a guy to the Dominican Republic if you're like, yeah, we're probably not gonna even send him to spring training. We're just gonna cut him loose, right? I mean, so it definitely sounds like he's at least a thought of potential part of the plans. Everyone knows me. I'm high on Aquino. I just think there's so much talent there. The one thing I have really liked is, his walk rate continues to climb, 7.1 to 10.7 to 13.2 the last 3 years. So that is a step in the right direction. Obviously, strikeouts can be overrated, but Aquino strikes out a lot. He's got to find a way to make more contact, but he's a lottery ticket for the Reds, and he's on a league minimum deal still next year. So I don't know why you wouldn't, continue to bring him to camp and give him a shot. Maybe at some point you do have to, cut him because he's out of options. You can't send him to AAA, but I don't think that time's yet, especially with, how slim the Reds are right now in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good to see that they're investing in him a little bit. They need to send a couple more hitting coaches throughout the world to visit some players, but not just him. But yeah, I mean, we all remember the highlights. I mean, I feel like he hit better than what he actually did this year. I remember looking at his numbers in September. I was like, God dang, I can't believe he's hitting this bad. But I don't know. I like him too. Plus defender. He's exciting to watch. I mean, Nick's right. He's a wild card, man. How nice would it be just to get some consistency out of him?
And he did still hit left-handed pitching above average last year, which the Reds, that was their biggest issue. So again, he's a lottery ticket, but he's a league minimum lottery ticket. I have no problem with them, ride him out a little bit longer.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so our last thing before we kind of go through the Reds non-tender candidates, it looks like today the MLB and MLB are discussing extended playoffs and a possible draft lottery. I'm going to be 50-50 on this. I'm not going to lie to you. As someone who covers basketball in the NBA and someone who's rooted for the Chicago Bulls and has been in a lot of lotteries in the last 25 years, they could be really fun. They're, when your team's there, potentially the Zion lottery, I thought the Bulls for sure were they had the top four odds. I was like, yes, I'm cool with that. Expanded playoffs, I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of the top seed getting a bye, but I don't really like the 3-game wild card series that everyone seems to like. Maybe I'm the minority there. I love the 1 game. I love the if people are going to bitch about it, it's well, win your division. I love that reaction to it. But really, I just kind of feel like a lot of this is just kind of weird, and I don't necessarily love the idea of it. So I don't know if we want to kind of touch on a few things. It's division winners get a couple spots right, and then they can pick who they play in the best of 3 wild card round. That would probably be televised, so that could at least be interesting.
Of course.
But what?
Yeah, I can already see the stupid shirts being made. Oh, they wanted us. They picked us.
No respect.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Us against the world. When I saw that whenever Tucker was wearing it, I'm like, what? Who's against y'all? No, most people don't even know y'all exist.
I
Lynn
thought
Hurl's
UC
retired.
Football. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the televised part of it. I don't know about I don't know about the. I think that's fascinating. The more storylines I can get, the better. I don't know about the expanded playoffs. I love the playoff format, like Tim said, the way it is right now. I love the 1-game playoff. I love that, they reward the division winners. I don't really love the idea of a 3-game series in one ballpark. Like, so you get to the playoffs, but you're playing the 3-game series, but you're not going to get a home game. That part of it's kind of weird. I do feel
like the COVID playoff.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe that would have been different with fans, but I didn't really love that. And not just because the Reds, couldn't get a run. But I don't know. Expanded playoffs feel inevitable, so it's kind of one of these things. How long do we want to die on this train that's running off the tracks? The Reds would have made the playoffs last year, though. They would have been the 6th
True.
seed. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a way for the Reds to get in the playoffs more. If this does happen, all of a sudden the Reds are legit playoff contenders next year, right? I mean,
and then why spend money on anybody?
Yeah, I don't think it really would change the trajectory all that much for the Reds, at least. Might for some other teams.
Yeah, but that's what we all want, right? We all want the Reds to change their trajectory and spend more money.
Well, I don't think if it's the same playoffs versus 7, I don't think it's going to change the Reds, what the Reds do or don't do, or what the Reds do. I think maybe if they don't get expanded, I think maybe that gives them more of a reason to say, 2022 is probably not our year. And maybe not like, I don't think they're going to be dumping guys necessarily, but maybe, be more willing to push a Gray trade across the table versus, I think Gray's a lot more attractive to the Reds in 2022 if there's a 7 team versus not. I don't know. But
yeah, there's not much I like about this at all. Like it's not good, for the players unless they drastically change the bonus payouts. Because, like, I think the first round you get like $25,000.
There was something in there about that. I don't know the exact thing. There is some additional pay because that's the only way they're going to get the the MLBPA to agree to it. So there is some incentive in that. Again, I feel like it's inevitable, so there's going to have to be some sort of structure.
Yeah, and then it sucks for that one team that's not going to play for 4 or 5 days.
Well, it depends. So I would assume with this, they would probably take out any tiebreaker games. And so, this probably starts on season ends Sunday. This probably starts Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the other team's playing on Saturday, which right now they don't play till like Friday, really. So I don't really think it's necessarily going to be that much more of a wait for them. But
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. The draft lottery is weird though. I don't really think that plays as well in baseball. I mean, it might be good for like the health of the sport and tanking and all that kind of stuff, but
I would like it if they kept it open to everybody, but this is saying just the worst 3 teams go in the actual lottery.
Yeah, do what the NBA does. Like the worst 4 teams have the best chances, and then the chances trickle down from there. But to further Nick's point, how many people even pay attention to the MLB draft besides us, because we do this podcast and we love the baseball team? But I don't, until the last 2 years, they were picking the top 5. I didn't, and then maybe this is just me personally, but I knew who Nick Senzel, Hunter Green, and Jonathan India were. But the rest of those first round picks for years, I was like, I don't know who they are. Are they good? Yeah. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? I don't know how many people are fascinated with the MLB draft enough to see a lottery and want to see it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I look at every guy that's picked. I Google them, and that's about the extent of it. For the Reds, I don't really care about what other teams draft.
That was kind of going back to Clay's question about whether he thought that it'd lead owners to be more aggressive to get in or not. I don't think it would. I would think that teams like the Reds, they'd be put at ease by just making the playoffs and being okay with it and keeping stuff status quo. Go ahead.
I think it may change teams more at the deadline than in the offseason. I don't think it's really going to change a lot of teams, plans for in the offseason, whether how far they're going to go for it. But I think when you're 2 months away from the end of the season, I mean, if there's 7 teams in versus 5, and you're that 6 team, but you're still like 5 or 6 games behind the 5th versus you have a lead. That it has to change. There's more pressure on you to stay the course or to even add even some small pieces. So I think it would definitely change the deadline, some of the thinking. But I agree. I don't think in the offseason it's going to do very much.
How does that work with the NBA, Tim? Are there a lot of moves with those seeds that are like 6 through 9, 6 through 10?
It depends on the draft class per se. So if you look at like this year's draft class, yeah, there was a lot of teams that were trying to move up and down. 2020, there was a lot of teams that were trying to move around because that was obviously the Zion Williamson, John Morant draft.
No. I'm talking about like during the season, like when teams like at the trade deadline and teams are sitting at the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th spot for the current playoffs. Like, are those guys making trades, like, trying to get better? Or do you still see like the 8, 9 seeds like giving away players?
I think it really necessarily depends on the franchise and their structure, but yeah, you definitely do see it. I mean, like last year, it kind of backfired on them, but the Bulls were really close, and so they called Orlando and got Nikola Vucevic, and they're obviously playing well now. It took a year, but they got Vucevic with the intent of being in the draft. I mean, being in the playoffs that year, and they gave up 2 first-round picks for him, and they missed the playoffs. So you definitely see it happen a lot. Especially like teams like big market teams like Brooklyn, LA, they're teams that they're groups that really go after guys like Cleveland. The years that LeBron was there, they obviously like at the trade deadline, they would try to get guys to make their team better. But also the thing with the NBA that doesn't necessarily happen a lot in baseball is the buyout market is really big. So like, Darren Williams is a perfect example when he ended up playing for Cleveland for half a year because I think it was Utah. Was it Utah? It was somebody was just like, we don't want to pay anymore. So they did a buyout contract so he could like get paid the salary he was owed by this former team and go sign with the Cavs for like $1 million and just play the rest of the year for him. So that's the only difference between basketball and baseball really in that case.
I think there would also be some differences too, just because the 7 seed in baseball is going to have a significantly higher chance of winning a round or 2 rounds or 3 rounds than the 7 or 8 seed in the NBA, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty rare that I think in the NBA, like the 8 seed is able to beat the 1, especially when the 1 is like, the legit 1. Whereas in baseball, I mean, look at the Braves. They were one of the worst teams in the playoffs and they just won the World Series. So, baseball's a little more, you get in, you're always going to have a chance, especially and the playoffs are such a different game too, right? Like the Reds could be kind of a mediocre team next year during the regular season, but you get to the playoffs with Castillo, Gray, and Malley, and all of a sudden, and even, 2 or 3 good relievers, you're a lot more formidable in a short 3 best of 3 series. So I think there would be some differences with that, but yeah, I don't know. I think it would definitely be good in season. I don't think it really changes necessarily the off season.
Yeah, I'm with you. So let's kind of go through the last part of the show here and kind of go through some of the Reds non-tender options and kind of discuss these. So we're going to just go through and kind of, I know Nick you said you wanted to kind of evaluate each guy here. So there's a handful of people that we can kind of we're going to be talking about. Obviously you start here. This is your ace. It's Luis Castillo. The figure, according to MLB Trade Rumors, was 7.6 mil. We obviously know the kind of player that he is. I think 7.6 mil might still be a bargain for Luis Castillo. I don't know if I'm in the minority there or not, but
it's a bargain.
Yeah, he's still pretty awesome at baseball. So I'm all for that fund. I don't mind that money at all for him.
Yeah, Luis Castillo is gonna get picked up. I don't think that's a question.
Yeah,
Scherzer's not 7 times better than him.
Right. Jesse Winker, MLB All-Star, 6.8 million.
Pick him up.
Yeah, and this is another easy selection. At 6.8 million, that's another good deal for Winker. So
yeah,
but it is
just standing there.
It is a big race. I mean, these are these first couple guys, these are significantly higher, dollar amounts than they were making the year before. So that is some of the where the money is going as the as you move from last year to next year.
Tyler Mahle, who we've heard is being talked for trades. Nick just talked about it. This is likely, if the Reds are in a short series in the playoffs next year, this is your number 3. So, yeah, I think $5.6 million is solid for him. And I know the joke's going to come. Yes, he has struggled to pitch at Great American Ballpark, but I suspect as he gets older, that'll get better. I just want him to throw less pitches and innings. I'm cool with that. If he does that, I'll give him the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's like a $2 million difference between Mahle and Castillo, that's why if that's an actual correct value that they've evaluated that right. That's why I think Mally's a significantly better bargain for a contract extension.
Yeah. Now here's where it kind of gets interesting. So Tyler Naquin was obviously a very big surprise for the team. Picked up for nothing, basically, after the Indians let him go. Do I say the Indians still, or do I have to say Guardians now?
Guardians.
Okay.
Well, it was the Indians at the time, so
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. But so I like the idea of picking it up and giving him a chance because he really was good. I mean, there was a stretch when, Winker was out and he was their second best left-handed hitter on the team behind Joey. And obviously, as Nick Senzel was injured and Shogo was kind of like not really hitting well and also not playing and injured for a while, Naquin did a great job filling in center field. So I would love to see him get another shot. I think he had 3 pretty damn good months last year. So I'm totally cool with the Reds giving that 3.6, if that's the right value, of course.
Yeah, I definitely think that he should be picked up. This is probably the only one of these players that is set to make a substantial amount of change next year that you could, if you're trying to cut, you could cut just to save money. I think all the guys below, if you're cutting them, it's more about the 40-man roster spot than actually the salary. And we'll talk more about that when we get to them. But yeah, Naquin's a really good hitter against right-handed pitching. Really, really good. And $3.6 million for a guy that can play, all 3 outfield positions. I think he'd be a lot better in the corner. I think his defensive numbers will look a lot better playing left field or right field. But yeah, I definitely think he should be back at 3.6.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
Obviously.
Done. Next slide.
Yep. Pick it up. Kyle Farmer. He stays.
89th percentile, outs above average.
Write that down.
At least as a platoon shortstop, with, I guess, some other guy Reds fans really like that.
No, I think he'll, I don't think I'd go over 3 if they're asking for it, but
yeah.
I mean, it seems like a good number.
I don't know if the Reds think he actually can catch or not. I don't think they think he could. But that would be interesting if he.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Picked up that as a backup role again, and catcher shortstop extraordinaire as your that's a way to really maximize that 2.2 million estimate. I don't think that's what would happen, but that is where he came up as. And I mean, I'm assuming, catching something, you don't just say, hey, I'm going to go catch again, and like you're, I think it's a little more.
I don't think Joey's going to catch again after he was drafted. So,
yeah, but yeah, I think they pick him up. It is 2.2 million. So I don't know. I mean, they did non-tender him last year. I think people forget that they non-tendered him and then they I guess signed him for a little bit less. It was a little less guaranteed or something like that. But yeah.
Amir Garrett. Obviously everyone loves the K rate, but and the whiffs are nice. But everything else obviously was a pretty brutal year. He's brought a lot of attention onto himself in not very good ways, obviously. I like Amir. And I do think he certainly has the ceiling to be a very good and left-handed relief pitcher, but I'm not in love with, after what he did this last season, the idea of him being back on this team. I would not be shocked if the Reds non-tendered him.
Carlos, you go first.
How much do they lose if he doesn't make the team out of camp?
So I was trying to find the actual numbers while we're doing this. So if it's a 15 and then a 30 day. So if you cut someone when there's still 30 days left before opening day, I think it's like $45,000. And then if it's like within 15 days before opening day, it's like $90,000. So that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand. I didn't understand it till more recently, is that just because that you sign them for arbitration doesn't mean that that's guaranteed. It's not like, when you're talking about picking up Tucker Barnhart's option, you pick up his $7.5 million option, you're paying that. You can't get out of that.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, you can send Amir Garrett to camp, and if you see no sign of improvement, I think you're talking less than $100,000, which in baseball is not that much money. I think he's worth that risk for that part of it. I also think it's possible that maybe someone, as the reliever market maybe starts to, dwindle, says, hey, you know what? I want to take a chance on Amir Garrett, and maybe he's a potential trade chip. So it would honestly, this would be one thing I would really have a difficult time understanding if the Reds did non-tender him. Why the hell did you keep him all last year? Because you were clearly hiding him in the bullpen.
Yeah, that's true.
July, August, and September. So I feel like that'd be one thing that would really just not get it all. And I would be very confused on, because you completely wasted a roster spot on him. And I just always assumed it was because we want to give him another offseason and we don't want to, lose the talent, but there's definitely talent there.
Yeah.
See how I got Nick to go first? But yeah, for all you're going to lose is 90 grand for him to, have all of spring training to show that he's worth staying on the team. Then absolutely, as much as I'm, done with seeing him in a Reds uniform, I mean, you got to take the chance. I mean, he was pretty good whenever he was on. But it just, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not just going to pick up someone with that potential talent.
Yeah,
for
if he's going to work as hard
nothing.
as he said he was, and he's told us stuff in the past before that really didn't hold any weight to it as the season went along. But he's left-handed. He's whatever 6'5". I mean, you got to give him a shot. I mean, lefties are a rare breed, and they get all the breaks. I'm a bit of right-handed, so.
But how many times have we seen a reliever have just a completely awful year, and then the next year they're fixed for whatever?
Iglesias.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think Iglesias was ever as bad as he was in that one year. But yeah, I mean, but like JJ Hoover, like he had great year, terrible year, great year, terrible year. Like there was never any explanation for it. Hoover was really good. JJ Hoover had some good years, and he had some
I hated looking at that guy in
atrocious years. Yeah, that beard was not pretty. I didn't like that. JJ, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
Never ever forget watching him give up a grand slam to Juan Francisco when he was traded for Juan Francisco.
It's enough JJ Hoover talk.
Yes, it is. Let's get to some good happiness here. This right here, in my opinion, could potentially be the biggest bargain in this conversation we're having.
Him and Kyle Farmer.
Yeah, him and Kyle Farmer. You're right. Luis Cessa, this is an easy pickup for me. Obviously, you traded for him for a reason. Was fantastic down the stretch for this team. Like, I think he had, like a 14, 15 innings without giving up a run. He had a stretch like that this year. When the bullpen, obviously, we saw, which was pretty rough. So, yeah, I think, obviously, the Reds plan to bring him back, and I think he's only going to get better, especially with DJ and crew helping him out.
Just reliable arm, throws, strikes, which was such a welcome, sign in this bullpen, when they got him. But yeah, I think he's a great pickup. No brainer at 1.6.
For sure.
Lucas Sims, next guy.
I mean, he's another obviously no brainer, but
yeah,
Lucas Sims. If you're watching, look at those StatCast numbers, man. That's why I'm so high on him. But yeah, I think he's due for a big. He had that kind of breakout year in 2020, but obviously it was very short. He was really, really good in 2020. But yeah, he had a lot of things not go his way. He was hurt last year. Had some tough luck games pitching that monsoon game, which really blew up his ERA. But yeah, I mean, for 1.2 million, I mean, that's a hell of an arm
with it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we've got Nick Senzel here, and obviously this is one that's very controversial for a lot of people. Look, I still really love Nick Senzel. I still believe in the ceiling. I don't know how much the Reds necessarily believe in the ceiling anymore. But 1.1 million, that's easy to me to give him a shot. Obviously, you took him that high in the draft for a reason. I don't know if he'll ever live up to that. I doubt he'll live up to that at this point with what we've seen so far. But, you know, my biggest frustration with him is not necessarily him being on and off the field. It's how is he so fast and he can't steal bases is what I'm kind of like frustrated about. But obviously a hell of enough athlete to learn to play center field. Maybe not be the best or metrically, but still kind of track some balls down that none others can. I still think he could, he really, before he got hurt, was really good in the box for a stretch there, was taking more pitches, was learning to walk. So I like him. I think 1.1 is an easy thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, the 1.1 is a no-brainer to pick him up. I don't know what to expect out of Nick Senzel. I think the Reds will be silly to trade him unless like he's a throw-in to really like make a deal happen or not happen. I think you just got to ride him out and see what you got with him. The guy I've really loved all offseason has been Chris Taylor, and I just keep thinking Nick Senzel like is Chris Taylor. Like that's the player like he could be if everything clicks for him. And a guy like Chris Taylor, it took him a long time to, that's the thing. We got to try to remember Nick Senzel has frustrated the hell out of me over the last couple of years, but some players, they click for whatever reason at certain years, and the talent's there. He's got that speed. Something that could be kind of interesting to me, if the Reds don't actually go get a legit center fielder is maybe you have Senzel and Barrero kind of fighting for center field, Farmer as your sort of shortstop, and maybe those three, Senzel not playing shortstop, but those three kind of fight over the playing time for those two positions. That could be kind of an interesting way to look at it and maybe, maximize some of your value there. I love Barrero. I love Barrero as a center fielder shortstop. Give me as many players that can do both of that as you can. That you cannot have enough players that can play both of those positions.
Have you said that before?
I've said that a million times. I'll keep saying it. Sorry.
Nick Zobrist.
Let's go. Jose Zobrist. Make them all Zobrist. Cooler.
Yeah. And then, of course, is this the last guy that I miss anymore?
Nick's guy. These are all Nick's guys.
Yeah.
Jeff Hoffman is not my guy.
Oh, come on now. You stood on that Jeff Hoffman hill plenty of times this year.
Not as like play. I said he's fine to have a roster spot, not necessarily. Hoffman, the 1.1 million, and again, it's like it's a percentage of the contract if he's cut 15 days before camp starts. I think in terms of the money, it's a no-brainer to keep him as starting pitching insurance. I just don't know about the roster spot. Do the Reds think they can use that roster spot for someone else? That's really, I think, what it comes down to. The money for a starting pitcher, even one that's slightly below league average, that's not much. But can they use that roster spot? That's the question I just don't know the answer to.
I got you there. Yeah, I don't know. I thought he pitched pretty well in the bullpen last year when he came back from his injury. But yeah, we'll see. You traded for him for a reason, obviously, because you were getting out of Bob Steve, and he definitely had his ups and downs. I went to his 2 really good starts, so maybe it was just like when I was there, he would pitch really well. I don't know.
See, Tim's the Jeff Hoffman guy.
Yeah. He wears 23. I like people who wear 23. Big fans of those guys. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it here. So yeah, I think that's kind of the non-tender group. We'll kind of see how things shake up as the offseason goes on. We did get a couple more questions in there I want to touch on. Any takes on the new coaching hires by the Reds today? That's from Nathan.
Sorry, Nathan. I got nothing. I know nothing about any of those guys. That's why I didn't even put them on the list. If you're looking for more hard-hitting coverage on, the Reds' backup assistant to the regional manager, hitting coach, you got to like read the Cincinnati Enquirer or something. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't really know anything about it either. Then Max asking, where will Trevor Story play? Obviously Cincinnati. Obviously.
I thought St. Louis, but I saw a report that they are not looking for a shortstop. Now that could just be,
Right.
positioning or whatever. But I thought
Brian Kelly said the other day he was going to stay at Notre Dame. We saw that shook up tonight.
Too soon, right, Tim?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe LA.
Yeah.
They lost Seager. That could be kind of interesting. I don't know, Carlos, you got any idea where he ends up?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably LA.
Maybe the Yankees would make sense too. It probably, maybe the Yankees or Dodgers, the loser of Correa gets, or maybe the Astros too, throw
or
them
the
in there as
Tigers.
well. Yeah, I guess the Tigers. So maybe one of those who doesn't get Correa, I think that's Story's probably the backup plan for Correa for a lot.
The Mariners have a shortstop?
Yeah, they have,
what the hell is his name?
it was from the Phillies, Crawford.
Yeah, JP Crawford. That's right.
JP Crawford, kind of a solid shortstop, not a elite shortstop or anything, but he's an above league average.
Like
shortstop.
a Kyle Farmer type?
Yeah.
A little bit better hitter, but not as good of a glove.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what contract could the Reds offer Clint Frazier to put pen to paper? I don't really have an answer as far as the numbers there. I can't imagine it would be a ton, right? Because he got a DFA'd.
It's probably like a 2-year deal or something.
Well, his trade rumor, MLB trade rumors arbitration estimate was like just over $2 million, and any team could have picked him up off of waivers. He cleared waivers, so no one picked him up for that guaranteed $2 million. So it would be less than $2 million. So that's a move, man. I'm shocked no one has done it. I don't know. Maybe Frazier and his agent are saying, "Hey, let's wait it out." After the CBA, after teams have signed more guys, and see if maybe we can get something. Maybe he can get a more incentivized laden deal later in the offseason that he wouldn't be able to get now, kind of once the market's gone.
Yeah, I agree. I want to ask you guys real quick before we get out of here about one guy in particular I saw that was not tendered as a kind of where, we've been talking about the potential of moving around the rotation. What do you guys think about the potential of Matthew Boyd pitching for the Reds next year?
I love that deal. He was, I think, set to make about $8 million and got non-tendered. That's a guy with a lot of upside.
Yeah.
Had a really good 2020. Kind of a down 2021, but that'd be a guy I'd love to have Derek Johnson have a chance to work with and see. I could definitely see him outperforming what you would have got out of Wade Miley. So
same, yeah,
I definitely think he'd be worth a shot. It just depends probably, what his market looks like. He's probably gonna be another one of those guys that's gonna want to wait as long as possible to sign a deal, be it, kind of after the market's, established and teams have missed out on other guys.
Yeah. I would love to see the Reds give it a shot too. I'm in the same boat as you. I think, the upside is just definitely worth taking a chance on, even if it's a minor league, non-MLB invite, whatever they call that for spring training. See what he brings. Remember when they did it with Dontrelle Willis? That was awesome.
I loved watching
Dontrelle
Willis pitch. He wasn't very good when he was with the Reds, but man, he was so fun to watch.
I went to a game that he started. I think they might have been playing the Nationals. He threw 7 innings. It gave up like 2 or 3 runs, and he went 3 for 3 at the plate. And I was like, "This is awesome!" Yeah, that was a blast.
Triple, I think.
Yep, that was that game. Yeah, Nick always I'll tell him some little mini thing that I remember from a game I went to, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I have the video." I went to this game. I remember literally I was 7 years old, where Deion Sanders got hit with a foul ball in left field, and Willie Green hit a grand slam, and Nick's like, "Yeah, here's the highlight reel." Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I love it. So
anyone out there needs to see a Reds highlight from when they were a kid, let me know. I'll find it for you. One of my few skills in life.
But with that being said, we will go ahead and wrap up this week's edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live. Thank you all for tuning in. Definitely appreciate it. Shout out to the crew at the Believe Podcast Network, Bet Online, all of them. Check us out on all your major podcast networks, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Bananas, Spider 2Y, you name it, we've got it. iHeartRadio,
Amazon Music,
Amazon Music.
YouTube.
Most importantly, YouTube. Yes, we'll be out there. And also, like I said, I always say, 5-star reviews for Christmas would be great. So thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next week, and go Reds.